Okay guys, I'm speaking to you right now after I filmed and edited all of the first batch of videos where we complete the Fissure of Woe. Before we get into the episode, I'm going to tell you this straight away, okay, because I thought this might be quite fun. I will eventually, while we're in the Fissure of Woe, wipe. My whole team will die and I will be kicked out. I thought, and it's so bad when it happens, like when you guys see it, you just won't believe it, but I thought it would be fun if, while you guys are watching these videos, you tell me in the comments if you think I'm about to wipe, and then tell me if you were right about where you guessed I might actually end up being kicked out of the foe. So it will happen, it's just a question of when, and I doubt any of you will guess when or why. It's, oh man, it's ridiculous. So yeah, alright, we'll try this out. So enjoy the video, and good luck. Hello everybody and welcome to the Fissure of Woe. Dun dun dun. Yes, alright, so this is going to be the first real episode of our look at the Realms of the Gods. So we're starting off with the Fissure of Woe. I'm not too worried about this. The Fissure of Woe really is very easy compared to the Underworld in particular, but I haven't really done that much planning for this. I mean, I've done all my regular wikiing and research and stuff, but we'll just have to see what happens. So as you can see there, we had a big box come up and it had loads of quests on it that are question marks. Basically, to complete the Fissure of Woe, we have, I think it's 12 quests that we have to complete. They won't tell us what the quests are initially. All of these quests are repeatable. You can always come back and do it again. If you die here, you're kicked out instantly and you have to do it all again. But if you manage to complete all of the quests, you get a nice in-game reward. So we've basically, our first goal is to just go out there and explore and see why Balthazar is inviting mortals to his realm. Like I said, this is a pretty easy one, so I think I can do the commentary pretty safely on my own. You'll see that I've got a compass up and a party window. I might not really need those for the Fissure of Woe, but I will for the Underworld, so I figure why go to the House of Lord turning them off and stuff. So they're there. I'm sorry, I know that it clutters the screen a little bit, but whatever. You'll see my build is just literally using save yourselves, and that's pretty much all I have to do here. But yeah, so when we get in at the start, we'll have this guy here called Rastagan the Eternal, who is kind of a bit lame. If you don't realise he's there and just wander off, he will go off and get himself killed, or it happens to me a few times. I've done 2 test runs of this before doing this video, but they were like a week ago now, so I've got a hell of a lot to say, but I don't know how much of it I'm really going to remember. So speak to Rastagan and see what he's got to say. What the hell's going on? Why are all this shadow army here in this afterlife? Balthazar has brought you here as a test. The Tower of Courage has fallen under the sway of the Shadow Army that serves Menzies. Balthazar will not brook this affront by his half-brother, the so-called Lord of Destruction. Destroy the Shadow Army forces in the tower, and you shall earn the respect of the God of War. Okay, I live for battle. Menzies, this is pretty much this entire thing. Menzies has an army. I've mentioned Menzies a few times. We saw the Shadow Army quite extensively, really. This is why I think I probably should have done these episodes a long time ago, because particularly before we went to Nightfall and saw all that stuff in Abaddon's realm. No, don't go over there because he can run off and get himself killed. Just clear everyone out here. But because basically we've already met a lot of the Shadow Army and stuff, because Menzies was helping out Abaddon, if you remember. But really this is the original place that you were supposed to meet them. If you think of this as sort of in a timeline, then basically these events happen before Nightfall, I think, essentially, is the idea. While the Underworld, conversely, has had updates that have happened since Nightfall came out, and now it's kind of skewed the Underworld storyline, and it kind of seems like that takes place after the events of Nightfall, which is quite funny, really, but yeah, that's the way it goes. So yeah, there's basically a big war. This is what's going on at the Fissure of Woe. I'm not sure what the Fissure of Woe is supposed to be like. It's described as a realm trapped in eternal war between Balthazar and his half-brother. But we kind of, when you finish here at the Fissure of Woe, it seems like you kind of clear it all out. So I don't know what's supposed to be going on after it. Neither do I know. I mean, most of these realms of the gods, as I mentioned, are supposed to be like afterlives, right? But I don't know whether this is supposed to be an afterlife you go to if you're being punished, or whether it's supposed to be good. Is this just like I can imagine Norn, for instance, and it's very weird and ambiguous what actually happens with other races other than humans when they die. In fact, there was an interview at Gamescom this year where it was with Rhys Osby, and it was like briefly mentioned what might happen. I'm kind of worried. Where's Rastagan? Is he still over there? Okay, good. Because you can kind of trigger him to walk off, and if he does, he can die if you've not killed everything. But yeah, there was this interview with Rhys Osby, and she mentioned something. She was very vague about it, so I can't help but be vague myself. But she basically mentioned that everything does go to another afterlife. So the Char do have afterlives, the Norn do have afterlives, and what decides which one they go to, Ree said something like, oh, and a deity decides where they go to, which leaves me kind of thinking, well, hold on, the Char don't believe in gods. What gives a deity the right to tell a Char where he goes to die, you know? So that's quite interesting. Rastigan, are you still over there? I'm going to leave the party window up. I'm going to try and avoid temptation of turning it off. I'm really not worried about this place. It's pretty easy. The thing is, the Underworld in the Fissure of Woe used to be of the same difficulty level, but because of a specific item called a glob of ectoplasm, generally the Fissure of Woe you can get a specific rare material called obsidian shards, and in the Underworld you can get a specific item called globs of ectoplasm. Both of these materials you need loads of, and they're quite rare, and you can only get them in these elite missions to craft some armor, which I'll show you in the Fissure of Woe later on. But basically people started farming the Underworld a hell of a lot more, so it had more and more updates. And then, was it last year or was it the year before? I think it was last year. A whole new massive boss encounter happened in the Underworld, where just all these kind of horrible updates started happening. So now the Underworld is very different to the Fissure of Woe. While the Fissure of Woe is still at its 2006 difficulty, essentially, the Underworld has been scaled up like mad. Okay, so we've cleared out this place. Our goal, as the quest said, we need to destroy 4 groups around this tower, the Tower of Courage, and then we need to go inside and defeat the Shadow Lord. We can't actually go inside to defeat the Shadow Lord until all of these other things are cleared out. There's a couple of quests like this here in the Fissure of Woe, and it's quite funny because the bosses are always quite underwhelming. The hardest thing about this place is over-aggroing. I mean, honestly, there's specifically a quest later where you assault a different tower, and I guess it's a bit stupid for me to talk about it already, but when you assault this tower, it takes ages to break in, and then the Lord inside literally just falls over. You just flick your wrist at him and he dies. It's hilarious. But yeah, so just due to the nature that this is an elite mission, and I'll come out and say it right now. I mean, I've played this game a lot, but I didn't really get too into these elite missions. The Domain of Anguish was always more of my forte, really. So like, I'm not 100% sure which groups I can avoid. So in both of my test runs, and it will probably happen in this run as well, I'm just going to be walking around killing everything in sight, basically. So with that in mind, there will probably be long bits of like this of me talking about basically nothing, and then long moments. I might just cut it all out completely of me just fighting stuff where I'm just kind of waiting for a new enemy to appear. The Shadow Army themselves aren't really that interesting. We've seen them a few times before, but as far as their skills go and stuff like that, they're not really that amazing. I mean, I'll be able to talk more about them as we go through. I'd rather not sort of blow all the information I have right at the start. Anyway, during that fight, Rastigan's been talking. He says, "That's it. Destroy the Shadow Army." And then when we finish them off, he says, "The servants of Menzies cannot withstand your righteous might. Now I shall open the gate." Menzies, by the way, is like a Gaelic... Oh no, he's still talking, sorry. He says, "Hearken to me, O Tower of Courage. I have come to challenge the false master of this place. Shelter not the coward from my righteous wrath." See, and this is quite hilarious. "In Balthazar's name, I command you, open the gate." It kind of builds you up into thinking, oh, this is going to be a huge boss fight. No. It's just 2 Abyssals, which are still a part of the Shadow Army, might I add. There are a few things in the Fissure of Woe that don't seem to be affiliated with Menzies. They're just kind of like the wildlife that live around here. And when we see those, I'll point them out. But, yeah, look, that guy just fell over. Literally, I didn't even fight him. I didn't even see the fight happen. He fell over, he died. Okay, so our party's completed 1 quest. One mechanic that's a bit weird and hasn't been completely removed. Years ago, when you completed a quest in the Fissure of Woe, you get a reward with a chest that wasn't locked, and you could click it and then you'd get an item out of it. The items were never anything special. They were just, I think half the time you'd just get purples from them. The chests still exist in the Fissure of Woe, but they don't do anything anymore, which is a bit weird. I don't know why they removed the drops from the chests themselves, but there you go. It always reminds me actually of in pre-Searing Ascalon, where there's all the chests and hidden stashes and stuff you can open, and then the second you leave, it's like they just don't exist anymore. It's only locked stuff, which is a shame. But anyway, we've completed that. Let's speak to Rastigan. "You shattered the forces of Menzies like a true champion of Balthazar. This realm is now open to you. Seek out what glory you might find, fighting alongside the eternal army of the God of War." Okay, right, and he'll give us another quest here. I'm not going to do it yet because... or should I do it? No. Basically, that quest guides you up enough to... It kind of takes you on a nice little path where you get to explore the Fissure of Woe a little bit, just doing... It's kind of a vague quest chain. But there's another quest that's always a very good idea to start when you come into the Fissure of Woe. You actually find a hunter, and it will spawn lots of things all around the world. That if you get the quest early, it saves you a lot of backtracking later on. So we're going to go and head over to that straight away. So yeah, of course new players probably wouldn't know about it, but that's just the way it goes. Oh, here we go. Already got an obsidian shard. So this is the rare material that you can get here in the Fissure of Woe. You pick it up. I got a few on my test runs actually. I think they're still in here somewhere. In my inventory, they should be. Where are they? Oh, there they are. God, I'm blind. So I've got 7 of them. They drop pretty nicely. I think, and of course, in the underworld, there's another one. These globs of ectoplasm. I think the ectoplasms are a lot rarer. Generally, most things in the Fissure of Woe will drop obsidian shards for you, and I think that's why it ended up, because the globs of ectoplasm were rarer. That meant that they were more desirable for people, which meant that the underworld was farmed more, which eventually led to this big kind of disparity between the 2 realms today. But in any case, you can get globs of ectoplasm here in the Fissure of Woe. There's like a specific monster that drops it extremely rarely. It's really so rare that you shouldn't think about it at all, but there is an exception to the rule, of course. And in fact, I think you can get obsidian shards in the underworld as well, respectively, but it's just very rare. Generally, they're just 1 for 1. But we're going to be coming this way, and we're going to be going to a place called the Battlefield. I think I was talking about something just now, but I completely forgot what I was going to say. Something about the Shadow Army. I don't know. Of course, we just heard in that quest reward that we picked up that he mentioned the Eternal Army. The Eternals are Balthazar's army. Just because this is an elite zone, you don't really see many of them, because the idea is if you had a whole army of allies yourself, then where's the challenge, I guess. But the idea is that Balthazar does have his own army. As I said, there's supposed to be like an eternal war going on here at the Fissure of Woe. In fact, we're coming up to one of the main battlefields here. But yeah, Balthazar's army is called the Eternal Army. We've actually met the Eternals before. Do you remember at the start of Nightfall? There were Eternals there. To get Acolyte Jin or Susuke, our challenge was to destroy one of Balthazar's Eternals. Well, all the allies we see here are still those Eternals, which is quite nice, because I never realised they were basically the exact same faction. But yeah, okay, so this is one of the battlefields. We've not really got any quest for why we should be here just yet. But on this battlefield, it's pretty cool, this place. I just like it because of, like, it kind of makes you think of trench warfare a little bit, with all these like bits of scrap iron and stuff everywhere. But basically here you will find neither the Shadow Army nor the Eternal Army. It's quite cool. The idea is that all you're going to be finding are the undead, and the idea is that this battlefield, just a battle has been raging here for all of eternity, and now there are no Shadow Army, there are no Eternals. All that's left, holy crap. Get out of the Chaos Storm, people. Wow, I never took this much damage before. Holy shit. Oh my god, I didn't die last time I played this. Oh my god. Should I flag them away? I think I probably should. Go on. Wow, I do want to mention that somebody's got a res. Please tell me somebody's got a res. I do want to mention that in my testing, I never had a single death the whole way through the Fissure of Woe. I guess the second you stop focusing, though, you can take damage. I'm definitely not trying to make this hard. I'm not on hard mode. I've even got concepts for backup. They're mostly for the underworld. I'm not trying to impress anyone here. I'm just playing the game so that we can see the stuff of the lore. Oh god, I did not expect this to happen. Seriously, I thought I could just wander around chatting. Seriously, we took that much damage? Well, who's left? Just 3 skeletal archers. Hopefully we should be okay. Yeah, we'll be fine. Cool, I panicked a bit there when I didn't really need to. But yeah, yeah, I think we just aggroed 2 groups. What was I saying? Oh yes, of course. There's no Eternals, there's no Shadow Army. All that's left are undead, and they're from both armies, and they're just hostile to everyone, which is really cool. This battlefield's got like a camp on either side, though. Obviously, the battle is still being waged. I've got Death Pact Signet on me, so I need to watch out for a little while. The war is still being waged. And you'll find that there's a camp to the Eternals, which you can only spawn the Eternals once you've killed enough of these undead around here. But as soon as you do, I'm worried now. I'm genuinely worried, and I wasn't worried coming into this. Wow. Okay. And then that's where we'll get one of our first quests. Yeah, there we go. See, we took out 2 groups just fine that time. Why did I nearly wipe just now? That's bizarre. Why? Oh well, maybe it was just bad luck. Right, so basically you can see these banners. These sort of tell you where the camps are. I think they should be clear now. And not all of... Well, I think if you go a really long way... If you press M, sorry, it will just show you the PvP map. That happens whenever you're in the Underworld or the Fissure of Woe. Yeah, I think we have to kill these guys. You see this camp here? As soon as we kill these guys, we'll meet some of the Eternals. But yeah, I think if you go a really long way, you can kind of bypass. If you go sort of all the way around the Fissure of Woe, you can get to this guy that I'm trying to reach for this first quest. But if you complete these quests, it opens up like a gateway. God, I've got to stop pressing M here. This is like the central hub of activity, really, in the Fissure of Woe that we're headed to now. I'll talk about it when we get to it. Okay, so... Here we go. Here's the Eternals. Eternal Weaponsmith. While we're doing that, I'll get those guys to go fight them. And we get 3 guys. We get Zuruchai the Eternal, who has nothing to say to us at all. They're all going to be alright, aren't they? Tell me they're going to be okay. They should be. We also get Cromriel the Eternal, who's got a quest for us, and an Eternal Weaponsmith who's got a quest for us. I think we want to do this one first. Okay, so he says, "Mortal, aren't you? You must be some sort of hero to be welcomed into the domain of the God of War. I can improve any weapons you find, but if you wish to bear armor more fitting to your heroism, you should seek out the Forge Master at the heart of the Temple of War." Okay, thanks for the advice. What he mentions here with us being some sort of hero to be welcomed, I never mentioned this in the previous episode, and I was planning to. To get access to these places, you also have to be ascended, which is why I showed that ascension bit. Also, just because I love the architecture in the Hall of Ascension, and I rarely talk about that. I mean, that's a room potentially built by the gods. How cool is that? There's all the golden stuff and all their statues everywhere. But yeah, you have to be ascended to get here, or if you're a Canthan character, you have to be Wayno Su, which will let the gods sort of deem you worthy. Or if you've played Nightfall, you have to have cleared out that temple to Melandru, where the Sunspear Sanctuary ends up coming. There's no indication in Nightfall. It's a bit of a weird one, but that is the requirement to let you come into these places. Anyway, right, let's move on. So, by doing this, basically, we want to go find this Forge Master, who's a really interesting character, actually. You have to get that quest first before you can come into this central hub, basically, because the gates will be locked otherwise, as far as I'm aware, anyway. We'll kill these guys. Yeah, so generally, I mean, people can solo this place in like an hour. You know, you spend enough time playing the game, you'll figure stuff like that out. I'm not very confident on which mobs I can avoid and which ones I can't. Which I can and which I can't, so I'm just going to be fighting everything. You probably will find in the later episodes when I stop rambling on about just everything. I won't have stuff to talk about, and I will just be cutting most of it out. So don't get too worried, guys. But here we got some Shadow Army, all nicely balled up there. I'm hoping to just sort of nuke them out. That would be amazing if I can. Nope, they're all going to move into me. Okay, so once you kill all of those Shadow Army guarding the door, the gate will open. See, I'm not sure if the quest we got spawned those mobs or whether you can do it anyway, but basically we can come here and meet the Eternal Forge Master. Unfortunately, this whole place has been taken over by the Shadow Army, so we've got to kind of clear them all out first. So I may as well talk about where we actually know the Shadow Army from. The first time we ever met the Shadow Army, they were at the Tomb of the Primeval Kings. We didn't meet many of them. So if you remember the Tomb of the Primeval Kings, back when I filmed that episode, we hadn't seen Nightfall, we hadn't seen any of this stuff to do with these gods, and I didn't really have much I could talk about without spoiling stuff. But now we've seen so much, I can kind of feel a bit easier talking about stuff. So most of the forces that we were fighting at the Tomb of the Primeval Kings, if you remember Abaddon was the one credited with the attack. It was his forces and Doom's forces. So Doom is a very big player when we get to the Underworld. He's sort of the guy against Grenth, while Menzies here is against Balthazar. So it was mostly Abaddon and Doom's forces that we fought all the way through the Tomb of the Primeval Kings. But right at the end, if you remember, we ended up fighting 3 giant guys called the Darknesses. Now, those were the guys that led the whole attack, and it turns out that it was Menzies. They're like powerful generals of Menzies that were leading the attack. So you had an attack, a combined attack from Doom and Abaddon that was being led by generals of Menzies, which is pretty crazy. And then, of course, later on in Nightfall, we found more of the Shadow Army because we went to the Ravenheart Gloom, which was, if you remember that, that's supposed to be a supposedly never-ending plane of darkness that stretches even outside of the realm of torment. They actually say that it could go to a place in the underworld, which we'll see later. But it was mostly Menzies' army was there as well. As you can see, Menzies, Doom and Abaddon were all working together quite a lot. They'd kind of formed like an uneasy pact of sorts, and this is why we saw so many of their forces together in Abaddon's realm. You'll of course remember that at the end of Ravenheart Gloom, the big bosses we fought there again were the Darknesses, but they were even more powerful. When we killed them, they split into more and more and more of them. There were lots of these guys. I mean, literally out there, it was the Order of Whispers versus groups of these Shadow Monks. The only other things we had there, if you remember, were Torment creatures, which of course were Abaddon's army. So there was like this kind of 3-way alliance with these 3 demigods, if you will. Some of them, like Abaddon, you could say is definitely a god. He was just a fallen god. The same with Doom, who we'll learn more about, obviously, when we get to the underworld. Menzies is a bit weird. I'm not sure whether to classify him as a god or not, because he's the half-brother of Balthazar. I mean, it's so weird that they say that he's the half-brother of another god, because now we can kind of think, oh right, does this mean that the gods have families? How is he a half-brother? Does Balthazar have a father? How is godhood sort of inherited? Is it sort of done through your bloodline? Well, we can say maybe not, because we know that Cormyr usurped Abaddon, and she had nothing to do sort of family-wise with any of the gods, as far as we know anyway. So it's a bit weird to think of. I'm not sure what Menzies really is. He's described as the evil half-brother. Some people call him Menzies the Mad. I'll just come out and say it right now. This whole time in the Fissure of Woe, we're going to be hearing loads about Menzies, but we will never actually face him directly. In the Underworld, you can face Doom directly, which is fucking awesome, and that only happened in another obsidian shard, awesome. And that only was added in sort of a later update in the Underworld. Quite recently, like I said, I think it was Halloween last year